Hi, welcome to the show. Today we're going to get physical and mental. We're going to put it together and we're going to put a label on it. It's called yoga. And then we're going to put a location to it. BOHO Yoga. Have you heard of it? Well, when we're done today, you certainly will have. And the people that created it are here. Two very talented women. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, BOHO Yoga. What BOHO? What's that come from?
Do you want to take this one?
Well, first of all, yeah, Rose is here.
Hello.
And this is Lesley, partners, founders of BOHO Yoga with an incredible past, and we're going to experience, and we're going to talk about that. So BOHO, where'd that come from?
Two things. One is that the building itself that the studio, where the studio is located, is called the BOHO building. So that was convenient.
Okay.
And we liked that it would come up alphabetically at the top because it would be easier to find searching for it. Also, it's kind of a catch-all term for bohemian, eclectic artist, like just off the beaten path, funky, unique, interesting. So
What else is in the building there? It's on First Street, right? What else is in the...
It's been changing, but right now there's the garage sale store, our neighbors.
Kind
There's
of bohemian, offbeat. Okay.
Yeah.
Funky, yeah, got it.
There's a hair salon around the corner. There is a restaurant and bar moving in next door, and there is a head shop selling glass and other related items.
Bohemian all
Yeah.
around. All right, the BOHO building. Okay, now I get it. And then yoga. All right, so how did you come to... Let's not go there yet. Let's go back up. Where were you from, Rose? Where'd you grow up?
Savannah, Georgia.
All right, and now you're in McMinnville. That's
It's a
long story.
Yeah.
And where'd you grow up, Lesley?
California?
I'm from San Diego. Sit tall. I'm from La Jolla. Where are you from in California?
I grew up in San Juan Bautista. It's a really small town in the Monterey Bay area.
Wonderful. Beautiful. Welcome to us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then high school, what was that like, Rose?
Oh, okay. I went to high school in St. Louis. It was fun. I was the only cheerleader in calculus. So,
You're a cheerleader.
I know people don't believe me, but I have the pictures to prove it. Yeah, and I did the tumbling.
So that somehow there's a connection there with yoga, tumbling and on the floor. Okay.
It's easier for me to do some of the more gymnastic stuff because of that background, for sure.
Great, great.
Impressive.
And they didn't drop you on those tosses in the air.
I was usually the one doing the.
You were a base. Yeah.
Base.
Okay. Listen, what high school? What happened?
High school was an interesting time. I started out at a high school of 320 kids in my really small town, and then we moved to Sacramento, and my high school was 3,500 kids. So it was.
Wow.
I went from Anzar High School, very small. I knew everyone since I was in like kindergarten, and then I moved to Sacramento my junior year and didn't know anyone. And
Did you recover? How long did it
did.
take to
Probably
recover?
why you're so good at talking to people.
I think it definitely helped me. I was able to pursue a lot of theater in Sacramento, which was not an option for me in San Juan Bautista, and so I think that has definitely come in handy as a yoga instructor.
Very good. All right. So let's start at the present and then kind of back up. So now you have this studio together. There's a lot of steps to, first of all, you had to meet each other. How did that happen?
Well, we worked at the same yoga studio in Portland where I did my yoga teacher training, the Yoga Space, and Rose was also a teacher there, and I overheard her having a conversation that she had an opportunity to open up a yoga studio in McMinnville. And I was like, I want to move to McMinnville. And she was like, really? Do you want to teach yoga? And I was like, yes. And so after a long series of events, here we are.
Eavesdropping.
And
Great.
yes, well,
Yes.
it should also be noted that I took over Leslie's class. I didn't know her, but I took over her class when she went on her honeymoon to hike the Pacific Crest Trail.
Okay, let's stop there.
Yeah.
Honeymoon.
Yeah.
And you walked for a day, you went up for a weekend? What'd you do?
We hiked. We took 6 months off, and we set the goal of hiking the entire Pacific Crest Trail, which is 2,700 miles, and we hiked not quite that far, but we hiked a lot. We hiked almost 1,700 miles in
Wow.
6 months.
And then the snow fell or something, and you couldn't.
Yeah, it was an
And she happened to
awesome
come
journey.
back to my
So
class right after
one day
that.
I'll write a book. Yeah.
And that's how it started.
All right, so we'll have to have you on another interview to tell us about the Pacific Crest Trail, but okay, deal. So you met in this class. Now both have quite a background, but Rose, you studied where? What's your you have an eclectic background in studying yoga. Tell us about that.
I did my first yoga teacher training in Atlanta, where I was living at the time, and that was with a woman named Ritu Chaudhry. And I was about 27 at the time. And then from there, didn't think that I was going to be a teacher. I did it just because I was interested in the philosophy, and I noticed when I was practicing more often that I felt better, and I wanted to keep up with that. So that was the reason that I did the teacher training. It happened to be incredible education. And then when I got to Portland, where I lived for about 8 years, I noticed that I had sometimes more information than some of the teachers I was learning from, and then I started to seek out other teachers in the area that had a reputation for long time study and who themselves had really seriously practiced, and then was able to learn from them, and then from there meeting their teachers who would come in from workshops, and we would have the opportunity to take those. So it's been evolving.
And not just in the United States.
Thank you. Yes, in India, I did a 500-hour teacher training. Actually, Facebook just reminded me that 6 years ago, yesterday was when I left for that training.
To go to India.
To go to India.
And you studied in India. You
did.
lived there for 6 months.
No. I
Six.
was only there for 5 weeks.
5 weeks,
Yeah.
okay. And what was that like? Compare and contrast Eastern or Indian yoga with Western U.S. yoga. What's that?
It's so hard to pinpoint, what yoga is, because there's so many different ways of interpreting it, and there's so many different lineages. The school that I went to was it was called Kavalyadam. It was actually a university in India that graduated yoga teachers for employment in India. And they were an Ayurvedic hospital, and they claimed to be the first research center for yoga and meditation, first scientific research center. So I went there for that program, for an advanced teacher training program. And the yoga itself, the physical practice, was very traditional. There wasn't a lot of really detailed instruction like you might get from Lesley or I, but it was something like take the pose, So you were sort of left on your own to flail a little bit. But I don't think that's characteristic of India in general. There's lots of great yoga happening in India.
Yet there was research going on around it.
There was a lot of it was funny because I would go see some of the equipment that they were using, and it almost was like an Austin Powers spaceship of some kind. Like it was just very outdated and kind of fun to look at. But so I don't really know how much research was going on there. But I know that there was a lot of publication, and that it was a very academic program. So I had many classes. I would do a yoga practice in the morning, and then all day long I would have academic classes on various subjects like the Yoga Sutra or the principles of a yoga practice. There's a handful of ethical guidelines, and so we would learn about things like that. And then the evening we would have another yoga practice.
So you went to the seat of yoga, which comes from the Hindu background religion.
Do you want to field this one? Because I know a lot of people, yes, that yoga developed in India and that it does have a lot of ties to Hinduism, but that it considers itself separate from the religion.
It definitely evolved. A lot of the shapes that we know of today have evolved from various stories that are, rooted in Hindu mythology, but it's very much its own kind of unique entity. You don't need to be a believing or practicing Hindu to practice yoga. It's very much of an applied physical practice or mental practice, and it's very spiritual practice.
All right, so let's just jump to, we're talking about the spiritual practice. What's it look like in your classes? I know that from reading your website, it seems like it's more, there's a lot of physical descriptions of what you do.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of time spent on what you think.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think that's a really important question. We start all of our classes with a meditation. It usually lasts anywhere from 5 to 10-ish minutes. And both Rose and I really believe that the meditation is one of the most important parts of the yoga practice. And it's not always, and that's one reason why we wanted to have our own yoga studio. We just felt like this was something that we really wanted to own, that we wanted to have a space that we felt that that was pretty spiritual, and that we focus a lot on the deeper aspects of yoga, and meditation will often just be noticing your breath, observing your thoughts, sitting quiet for a moment. I think oftentimes the hardest part of meditation is finding your comfortable seat. And so
when
we
all you
have
got's the
lots of
floor.
props. We have large bolsters. It's really
Chairs if you need
chairs if you need them, and so we start all of our classes with meditation, and then we have the physical practice. Depending on the type of class it is, we try and offer a wide range of classes, and we try and pull in teachers from outside that are going to give our students more exposure to various styles of yoga, because we can only teach from a place that we know, and we really want our studio to be a yoga school. We want to teach people about yoga and all the different types. I think that there are benefits to all the types of yoga, and I think that there are certain forms of yoga that are going to speak to certain people more than others. So people who have more physical goals might be more drawn to more physical types of yoga, and then over time, or just more different people might be more drawn to other types of yoga. So we try and offer kind of a wide range of styles to help people really understand the depth of what's out there.
I want to talk more about your different classes and what you offer, but I want to back up to that beginning of each class where you have a meditation. What do you think the change would be from before the meditation to after the meditation? What are you looking for? What happens? What's the result?
I like to try to keep the meditation going. I think you do too, through the physical practice, because I think that's what distinguishes yoga from regular exercise. And I think regular exercise is really great and healthy for us, but the time that one takes to turn their attention inward and to really try to listen to the feedback that the body is offering, and then adjusting their body in such a way that is that you feel, okay, this is right. Like this feels like it's working. When you're pounding out reps of things, sometimes you don't have that mindfulness. And I think that the mindfulness component of it, along with the breath and then the presence, is really what distinguishes yoga from other physical activity.
And then linking them together. So having this meditation that really allows you to set the tone so that you really have a chance to focus on what your breath is doing today. And I think over time we start to recognize that some days our breath is more erratic than others, and that we may need to modify our physical practice depending on kind of where the body is currently at every day, and it's different from one day to the next. And so being able to take a moment to really honor and ask yourself kind of where you're at today, and then allow that to kind of link into the physical practice. So then moving with the breath as you move into various shapes, and acknowledging that the breath itself, just the way that you breathe, changes the physicality of the body, and that can help you or make things more challenging depending on what you're trying to do. And making those connections between what you see in your yoga class and the way that you move throughout your day in a normal in your normal life.
All right. Keeping the meditation going while you're moving, it becomes somewhat otherworldly. You kind of get launched into a different place than you're used to. Would you say that? Do people talk about that?
Yeah. And I think that it can be kind of scary for a lot of people to be confronted with so many thoughts and feelings all at once. And we try and offer a safe space for people to really explore that. And there are often times that people will break down and cry in yoga classes, or they'll need to really take a moment and step back and take a break and then come back, because it can be such a confronting practice. It's something that's really asking you to not just observe your breath, but when you do that, you start to observe your thoughts. And my background as a personal trainer, really diving into the observation of the thoughts to help people cultivate change off of the mat is one of the biggest lessons that I think we try and send people with.
I would think one thing that might be confronting someone is they've taken time to care for themselves, and they're kind of noticing that they've got on the mat, and now they're really focusing on how they feel.
Yeah.
And then also, I've taken a class from you, and I also felt she cares about me in a very way that I don't quite understand, because she's trained to do this. I forget what I was doing, but you pulled on my leg and set it down, and I thought, that was magic. I don't know what she touched me. It just was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And so that self-care, we just had a show last week about compassion, and that people, when they start to get compassionate, getting compassionate for themselves is confronting.
Yeah.
You know, that you've kind of pushed things away, and now you're kind of becoming close to yourself in yoga, and that can be a big release.
And I think for both of us, we really think of our yoga as a service. And I know that myself, I was initially going, and Rose has a path where she was going to go into counseling, and I was going into nursing. And then, so we both have this very service-oriented nature of ourselves. And being able to offer a service to our students and a space of healing and healing touch. I think that safe healing touch can be a very powerful thing to share with someone. And so the touch that we had, you were in what we call Shavasana. At the end of all of our classes, we offer a restorative pose. So it's either lying on your back. It's usually lying on your back. Sometimes I'll offer lying on your stomach, or maybe legs up the wall, which can feel really nice. And then given the class size or the time that we have, we will always try and offer our students just a little bit of helpful touch. So pulling on your legs and helping you to release your low back, or maybe coming behind your head and giving you a gentle pressure on your chest or your shoulders, and releasing your cervical spine. Those are all things that we try and do to allow our students to come to a place of greater relaxation.
Yes.
And it can be so healing, because it's very hard for all of us. I know, especially from
It's hard to let go
hard,
of your gripping. I mean, even when you're laying there, you know, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to hold this thing all together. And so I think the touch, and then that pose in particular, really lets people, I can let go a little bit here. It's okay to be held.
And that's why usually those restorative poses last for at least 5 minutes, is because it takes a while for the body to stop fighting you. And there's a whole area of yoga called yin yoga, and you stay in the poses for a very long period of time, usually greater than 5 minutes, or 3 to 5 minutes, I guess, depending. And the idea there is that you're in this shape and you're supported enough. So we use a lot of props that you get to a point where the body can kind of relax into the shape, and then you find a greater sense of release from that versus active stretching, where you're kind of fighting against yourself the whole time. And so my theory is I think there's benefits to all of them, and I think really allowing people to experience the different kinds will allow them just to have more tools in their toolbox to figure out, hey, I'm feeling this way, let me try this, or let me try this, and to be our own healers.
So I'm feeling really relaxed now, and now I'm remembering you have this one class called CrossFit.
Cross-training.
Cross-training, all right? So how does
Yeah.
cross-training go
Yeah.
with, because, frankly, I don't want to just spend an hour relaxing. I want to come out of there feeling, I don't know, younger, stronger,
that's fair.
and
We have a lot of those.
better able to,
Yeah.
move in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I am attracted to something like cross-training. So what happens in cross-training?
So cross-training, I developed this class as a complement to a strong yoga practice. So in a lot of vinyasa type classes, the movements that you see over and over and over, especially what we call sun salutations, the emphasis is on the front part of the body. So there's a lot of strengthening of the chest, of the fronts of the shoulders. There's a lot of strengthening of the quads, and just the way that the classes are oriented, especially in those faster paced classes, we don't tend to do a lot of opening in those areas, or a lot of strengthening of the back. Just because those take a little bit more time to set up. So this class is really designed to target those areas that will help to strengthen the muscles that will really help support a strong practice.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a really nice complement as well. Anyone who spends a lot of time sitting or writing, or anyone who has a pattern in their body that kind of rounds them forward or causes their hip flexors to tighten. So this class is really meant to give you some more tools for your toolbox to help you lengthen the front of your body, strengthen the back of your body, work all those little stabilizing muscles of the shoulders, of the hips, and go through some range of motion, or maybe lateral movements is something. I mean, a lot of times in yoga, we're on a mat. The mat is, about as long as our body, and it's narrow. So we don't often do a lot of transfers of weight laterally. So that's something that I try and incorporate in this complementary class.
All right. Now, Rose, that sounds like something you've kind of come up with, Lesley. Rose, have you got a thing that you've kind of said, well, I think we could offer this, and you've created it?
As far as the physical aspect, I would definitely say the hips and low back class is a pet project of mine.
Hips and low back.
And when you were talking, it just reminded me, I actually do a lot of that stuff too. And it's so wonderful there's so much we can do for low back pain. And once people start to become a little more aware of how the front and back are related to one another, how the hip flexors affect the spine, that's one of my favorite.
Low back pain can be a real problem for people. There's not a lot of maybe help, in the doctor doesn't know what to do except maybe give you some muscle relaxants or whatever. But people get into real pain and can't find a comfortable position even. And if you've got some, for lack of a better word, technology for...
It's a multi-pronged approach. It's like Lesley said, the opening of the front body, definitely strengthening the back body, strengthening the outer hips, core support, learning how to effectively use your core. Yeah, there's a lot that can be done. I think that's one of the things that's so compelling about yoga is that I think we have maybe culturally a belief that we need to be fixed, or that we could take a pill and that will, and these things are helpful. Sometimes we need Western medicine, but there's a lot we can do on our own before we need to up the ante on what it is that we need for good health. So,
What's some other classes that come to mind that you want to talk about?
Oh, I want to talk about Rose's 10 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
You know, there's that.
Is,
Yes. Thank you.
She is, I mean, her knowledge of philosophy is really strong. And so if you have any interest in learning about yogic philosophy, Rose is an incredible resource. And I always learn something going to her classes. So
That's both physical and mental learning.
Yeah.
Combined.
And those classes are they're very interesting to me. They're definitely on the gentler side. They're very stretch oriented, but it's a lot of like somatic release is how I like to think of it. I'm really interested in the mind-body connection and how we can process emotions through our physical movement, how emotions get stored in the physical body, and I think that's just such untapped territory that we're just really now learning how strong that connection is and how we can influence our health by having a calmer headspace too.
Yeah. And then every month we have workshops, and Rose and I are trying to really use those workshops as time to really highlight areas that we have a lot of knowledge in, and so using those as a next step, an additional learning tool has been
Workshops.
really helpful.
Is
Yeah.
a
So
specific topic you hit for 3 or 4 hours at once or
Yep.
something? Okay.
yeah, sometimes it'll focus on a pose. Sometimes it'll focus on the philosophy aspect of yoga. Sometimes it'll focus on a meditation, and oftentimes I'm going to do a cross training workshop next month, and then
And we also invite visiting teachers
Yeah.
in too for that, so we can have more information available.
we feel.
And we've talked about
yeah.
maybe half of the classes you offer. So it's just, there's early sunrise yoga and,
We got you early in the morning. We got you late in the evening.
yeah.
7 days a week, beginner to advanced.
and what I guess I would like to ask you to talk about, you evaluate each person individually and you've got, you can kind of see what they might need.
Yeah.
You did that for me. I came in and you said, okay, now get on your hands and knees and arch your back up. Now arch it down, and you're trying to bend. And you say, okay, Ken, I want to show you what your back looks like. When you're arching down, it's straight. I mean, you can't do this. I thought I was.
Yeah.
So there's a little anomaly that I have that you're going to help me with, right?
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be arching my back here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Spinal mobility, it's a fountain of youth.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, fountain of youth. And then I think it's also really important to talk to your yoga teacher before class, before going to any class about any limitations that you might have. And you shared with me some of the pain that you were experiencing
Yeah.
with various movements.
Yeah.
And so there were things that I was able to tell you, hey, I wouldn't recommend this at this point.
Yeah.
And so these are the classes that I would recommend. And that's something that we really encourage students who are considering coming to yoga for the first time to come to class like 15 minutes, 10 minutes early, or reach out to us and try and set up a time that we can connect and help you to navigate the big world of yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've noticed the one thing for the cross training, it says, be prepared to get up and down off the floor a lot of times.
Yeah.
I'd like to get better at that. It's amazing when you hit 60 that it's more of a process getting down and back up than it used to be.
Yeah.
Can we address that?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
And there's some very simple cues that I have learned over time that are just really helpful for helping you to figure out how to align your body to get up and down off the floor more efficiently.
Yeah.
And that's something that I work with my postpartum class on, my baby and me class, which is like my favorite class of the entire week. And so I get to play with babies and new moms, and so slowly helping them to rebuild strength and using dynamic weight as we transfer. It's really fun. So.
Yeah, I saw you do a pretty good trick. You were sitting with your legs crossed, and you just kind of put your feet down and you stood up. You didn't put your hands down. You didn't rock. You just I don't know how you did that. That was like anti-gravity.
It takes some flexibility, and it takes flexibility in your hips. It takes some strength, and then it takes alignment of the feet. And your feet have to be flexed, and they have to be about this
Yeah.
far apart from each other. And then,
All right.
but
know
if you
what?
want to do that,
We're out of time. So
Yeah.
if you want to see Lesley do that, come down to BOHO Yoga. It's amazing.
thank you.
Thank you
Ken.
so much for being. We're out of time.
Yeah.
And you opened this incredible space, and it's just wonderful. So
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much,
Yeah.
Ken. Thank
So-
you.
Thank you.
So glad you're here.
Yes.
Bye-bye.